Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Go on, Rich. Go on.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to this section of the Independent Producers Live Showcase. And I'm going to introduce my co-host, Bruce Broussard, and he's going to introduce our guest for today.
Right.
Okay?
Thanks, Rich. It's going to be a pleasure here at the Oregon Voters Digest and the Producers Show. Wow.
Right.
This is hot. This is hot. And we got quite a candidate here too. I already interviewed him on the Voters Digest, but in all due respect, he's a prime candidate because in all due respect, he was raised right here in our area, right here in the swamp area, here
okay.
in the Portland, Multnomah County area, right? Got me?
Right.
And you know, that's one of our focal points that you and I, we've talked about this piece. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be interviewing, we're going to be talking to John here, John Sweeney, who's running for governor. He's run for other offices before in the past, but besides that, he's very familiar with the terrain. Got me? He's very familiar. He was a former national. He was a former captain in the Army National Guard. Worked for the city of Portland in the parks. He was in the Parks Bureau, so he was up there. And so when you start thinking about a lot of the issues we have here in the city, the parks is a very viable source, if you will, for the citizens across the board here in the Portland metropolitan area. So he worked at that arena, and so that's an area that hopefully he's going to talk, maybe spend a little bit more time and talk about that today. That's one aspect of it. And he's also spent a lot of time, in all due respect, of understanding what what an armsman person is. You know, I mean, he's an avid person who's familiar with armament. Let's put it that way. Got me? And he understands what that's all about. And we're going to take advantage of that also too, because that's something that as citizens, we're very much concerned about, because people they misuse, if you will, the definition of armament. And we've got situations now trying to figure out the buying and selling and all kinds of different things, aspect of it, and then maybe through some of the things that John might share with us, he will share some things along that particular line also too. But because he's running for governor, and he's a very qualified person, and he talks to the issues, because those are two major areas, i.e. the parks is very utilized, and there's a shortage of utilization at this point in time for the parks due to the issues that we're having to deal with here in the Portland metropolitan area, and the county for that matter. And then naturally, we got shootings and all kinds of things that are happening here within the city. And maybe John could share, so we can talk a little bit about that too. Okay? Sounds good?
Yeah.
So
sure.
with that, John, how you doing? Welcome aboard.
Well, I'm doing fine, you know. As seasoned as I am with my years, everything works, you know.
Right.
Lifelong non-smoker.
Right.
Things are working out real well.
Right.
Got my 3 shots and doing fine.
Good. Well, John, you know, like I said, we spent some time on my show, Voters Digest, but now we're doing producer show aspect of it, and maybe we might have another audience, let's put it that way. So why don't you spend a little time talking about John and how you got involved in politics, and why are you now running for governor of the state, for the state of Oregon?
Well, I'm a native-born Oregonian. I was born in Glenada, Oregon, and for those of you who don't know,
Yeah, where's Glenada? Boy, Jesus, I thought that was Grenada. Was that Grenada or Glenada?
No, Glenada. Yeah.
Glenada.
It's across the river, Siuslaw River from Florence on Highway 101, and you hear these small towns. You sneeze, you miss it. Well,
Yes.
there's an S turn going through Glenada. You sneeze going south, you run into a bank. You sneeze going north, you go over a bank. Don't sneeze going through Glenada.
That's a popular route too, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Beautiful route, very scenic, right? Scenic.
Oh, you bet. To go up and down the coast and on Highway 101. And in
Yes.
fact, sometimes you're right down next to the ocean, and in fact, there's a couple places you're over 4,000 feet above the ocean.
Wow.
And the deal is, you better pay attention, because if something gets in your way and you swerve the wrong way, it's a long drop.
But then the whales and all the killer whales, they all migrate in that area too, don't they?
Oh yeah, they go up and down the coast. You know, they have the spring migration and
Wow.
the fall migration, and actually went out on a boat one time, and they says, "Oh, you should be back here. It's drier." Actually, I said, "No, you be up on the front. You know, it's like on a bumpy road. You can
Right.
see the waves coming.
Right.
If you're in the back, you know, you can't see the waves." And like the going story was, is somebody was thrown up over the side. "You got a weak stomach." "What do you mean?" "I'm puking as
Yeah,
far
right.
as everybody else." You know? But anyway, you know, the United States is the best country in the world, and you know, you look at Oregon and Washington and Northern California. This is the best of the best. And of course, I spent most of my life here in Portland, and I was with the Portland Parks for 32 years, 8 months. So I started out as a laborer, and then I was an equipment operator, and I got to be a foreman and a supervisor, and had a lot of seasonal maintenance workers come on, and they became permanent. In fact, I pride myself that more of my temporaries became permanents, because I helped them preparing for when the civil service comes up, because I started and got on with them, and it was a good deal, and taught them, and they were good workers, you know. And some people say about government workers being lazy. No, that's not true. In fact, you know, most people, public and private, if they have a job, they want to do a good job. And anyway, then I was in the Army National Guard, then I went to Army Reserve, short break, then I went back to the Army National Guard, was 3 days short of 28 years, and started as a private and retired as a captain, and went through my officer's training at Camp Withicum, and then I went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, for my officer's basic and advanced, and Command General Staff College, and and operated at a fairly high level in the Guard, and it translated a lot into my work, and actually my work actually helped a lot with the military, because they're alike in a lot of ways. So understanding the climate and weather and things like that, and we're really lucky here. We don't have extreme weathers in the summer and extreme weathers in the winter, so we're pretty lucky. A little bit too hot sometimes, a little bit too cold sometimes, but basically I'm a native Oregonian, and I like it, and you know, most of the people are really good, and I really enjoyed the parks, and I enjoyed the Guard, and most of the time, see, there are no perfect jobs,
Right.
and
The
and the first time I ran for office, I ran for mayor of Portland,
Okay.
and
Who was the mayor at the time?
that was Terry Shrunk,
Chase Trump. Okay.
and there's 4 of us in the race, and I come in second, and I brought up the issue about the 17th and Powell, and for the people who have been here since probably 1970 or so, why they put the underpass there, so because it used to be the trains would stop the traffic in the morning and the evening rush hour times, and then the city of Portland went from full-size cars for the supervisors throughout the cities to medium-sized cars, which saved them money in the initial buying of the car, and then the fuel consumption was down.
Okay.
And I had run for different offices, and in fact I ran for auditor once, and after I ran for auditor, the city of Portland candidates are now in the voters pamphlet, which you know, before that it was a case people didn't know the city council was up for race until actually they were in the voting booth. And I still like going to the polls, and not a fan of vote by mail, but that's the rules. And the election is on May 17th, and so about the 25th or so of April, the ballots will be in the mail, and about a week before that, the voters pamphlet will be in the mail. And one of the nice things about the voters pamphlet now, it used to be Republicans got Republican ones and Democrats got Democrat won. Now you get the voters pamphlet, and you can see both sides of the coin. So when it comes to general election time, you can look back and say, what did this guy or gal say when it was in the primary?
Right.
And sometimes you see that they change. You know, it's because they've been walking around licking their finger and holding their finger up to see which way the wind's blowing.
Oh, yeah, okay,
You know,
okay, all right.
some of those
Good
people.
Point. Good point.
And but
There's still a little time for sign up too, right? For governor.
oh yes.
With the 8th.
Okay, to the 8th of March at 5 o'clock is the deadline, and then 2 days later is for the voters pamphlet, and I got my voters pamphlet done, which you had to do online, and my wife helped me, and Dominic Lopez, the Secretary of State's office, helped me immensely, and I told him he was the master of the quag.
Yeah. Okay.
See, and for those of you who haven't been in service, there's the WAG, which is the wild ass guess, and the SWAG, which is a simple wild ass guess. But the quag is the calculated wild ass guess.
Yeah. Okay.
And he really helped. But right now, there's about 30 people in the governor's race.
30. Wow.
30. There was 31, but one of the
Once-
fellows, he didn't have his 3 years here. It's one of the few that has a long
Yeah,
residency
yeah, right.
qualification.
That was a big deal.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. And there's going to be three big races. Well, actually 4 big races in this area. The governor's race, because the incumbent is term limited out. There's the 4th and 6th congressional districts, because DeFazio's not running for re-election, and the 6th congressional district's brand new.
Yeah.
And of course for the county chair, because the county chair is term limited out, and there's a number of people in that, and I'm looking at one that says he's going to jump in that thing. He's going to be about this deep in it. I hope it makes a big splash. And so this is going to be a pretty hot year for an off-year election.
Right.
So we will see how that works out, and we have a lot of things to fix up, because especially with the city council,
Right.
they had those people who were promoting defund the police, defund the police. Well, if you look at our history, when they've cut our military back, we ended up in wars, you end up with no police, you ended up with crime, and you're interested in a shooting. Basically, there's 2 kinds of shooting. There's the street shootings, which is happening in poor neighborhoods, and they are shooting in scoot affairs, bang, bang, and pull out. And these people are poor, and they can't afford firearms,
Right.
or maybe they have criminal backgrounds and they're not allowed to have firearms, and they're really victimized.
Right.
And then the other, of course, is what I call school shootings. Isn't necessarily school, but those are people who are been victimized, from bullying.
Yeah.
And on that, I like to see them to have a bully registry. So the fact that, if nothing else, if we can't shame them, then maybe the deal is you start putting some of them behind jail.
Right.
Because it's really a serious thing. We have a right as law-abiding citizens to have firearms, but the thing is that a lot of people, they don't want that. And I call them anti-firearms and anti-freedom, and it's our freedoms that they want to cheat us on.
Okay. Rich.
Can I go back to the National Guard
Yeah.
and Jerome, that building out southwest? Jerome,
Oh, the
forgot
Sarong.
his last name.
That's Sears. That's Sears.
Sears, that's
Hall.
right, sure.
Right.
And I had the impression they had to have space to do National Guard drilling.
Well, that was an Army Reserve, and in fact, I was had come back from Okinawa and joined the Army Reserve we were in a storefront up on about 104th and Sandy. Then I moved to Sears Hall out there on Multnomah Boulevard, and so you did your normal drilling kind of administratively, where you did a little drilling ceremonies and you did your training for different things. But this was a training unit, and then you have A, B, and C. A is a fully equipped military unit, and B is a. I was in one where you have you don't have the real low ranks because you figure you're going to get fillers if you go to war. Or I was in the 3670. You could actually hire civilians if you went someplace. Then their C was cadre, which is you have very small people in the unit, and then when the war would go up, and you go through about 3 or 4 cycles of training troops, and you would expand until you become full size, and then when you go off to war, or you would stay cadre for that. So you and a lot of times for field training, they would go to places like Camp Bonneville and Camp Rylea and several other places. Over to Redmond, they have the Central Oregon Training Area. I went over there a couple of times. In fact, we went over on a recon and by helicopter, and we come back out into headwind, and as I listened to the pilot talking about, we're going to have enough fuel to make it.
Oh my God!
All this,
And we're in mountainous territory, you know. I'm just thinking,
what were you thinking, John?
hey,
you
God,
say it,
ease
man? Did you say
ease
it?
up so we can make it.
all this comes back to they want that area where the Sears for homeless. Is my
It's a
understanding.
real nice building. It's a real nice building, and has a parking lot and a fair amount of ground. And
So how much real estate? What's you have an idea what size lot that is?
I would say it's about almost the
city
size
block,
of.
the city block maybe.
Oh no, more than that.
What city block? Say maybe 2 of them.
It's about the size of Woodstock Park, which is 11 acres,
11 acres, really?
and an acre is about the size of a football field.
Right.
So you're looking at a 2-story building, and I don't remember how many buildings, how many rooms, you know, classrooms was in it.
Yeah.
But you had a drill hall, and you had a mess hall.
Yeah.
You had showers.
Wow.
You had
Wow.
arms room lockers. You know,
Wow.
so you could actually move quite a few people in there. But actually, if they want to do something about the homeless, they could actually get some of those buildings downtown.
There you go.
Because I figure they have places to get rid of their garbage, but also for parking some vehicles. But you look at each floor has drinking fountains and restrooms, so they could add on to have showers and laundry service
Some of the facility.
in
Army
each floor. And each floor, a lot of them, the modern buildings, the walls are removable, so you could actually have 20 by 20 squares for them to pitch their tents inside, and room for some of their spare stuff.
That's the armory we were talking about.
No, this is downtown. If they did downtown buildings, but
Yeah, but what about the armory?
but okay, the armory there, they have several rooms, so you could put a family in one room, or you could divide it up, or the fact that you could have it set up like a barracks, where you could have easily 10 bunks, you know, so you could have 10 people in each one of the rooms, you know, say rooms for
But you could
guys.
also possibly set up temporary tents outside too, like
Oh
There's
yeah, if they
enough
want, yeah,
property there.
yeah. And the deal is, we were all in the service. Let me tell you, look around those tents; those are a lot better tents than we were
Oh,
sleeping
yeah, I
in.
heard that. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, very much so. That's interesting. How many armies are there around the state? You said approximately.
there's probably about 200.
About
you know,
200 of them?
guard and reserve. You know, and some of the reserves moved in with the guard out at Camp Withicum, and
About 200 of them.
there's some reserve down there at Camp Rylea. So they're maximizing their land that they have left, because what they have when they have a little bit of peace, they says, well, they really don't need that.
Yeah.
It's like Camp Withicum used to have that whole hill behind it, and they
huge,
cut
yeah.
that back. In fact, in World War II, they actually had a landing strip there, and actually had P-40s take off from there. And
Really?
P-40 was a top-notch plane at one time.
Wow.
But they have trailer courts living close by, and I know I went up and examined the hill one time, and they had a couple things roped off, and we were up there one time, and they were dropping some trees and stuff like that. So there's just like Washington D.C. If you look at it, it at one time was a 10 mile by 10 mile square, and they says, "Oh, we'll never need it." So they got rid of the stuff in Virginia. So Arlington, Virginia would complete the original 10 mile by 10 mile square, because George Washington was also a surveyor, and he had actually marked off the 10 mile by 10 mile square.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So Withicum was at one point in time was 10 by 10?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
really?
you just extend the lines into Virginia, 10 miles, and then attach it in the bottom, and that would be the original 10 mile by 10 mile square.
Okay. Now what about Withicum? Same thing?
Yeah, they have plenty of land,
Right
and
now,
they said,
right.
somebody says, "Oh, never need it." Now they've actually built the area up, so doing most of your training, you'd actually have to go somewhere else, get in a convoy and go down to Camp Rylea or over to Redmond, because they've closed down Camp Bonneville in Washington.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Rich, what do you think?
when you say 200, what's that, nationwide?
Around the state.
Around the
Yep.
state. Around
You know,
the
the
state.
Oregon is if you look at Oregon is about a 300 mile by 400 mile rectangle, which is a big piece of land.
Yeah. Well, they're bringing in to some of these other places. They're bringing in refugees
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
to be there until they get sorted out. They always seem to come from somewhere.
Yeah. I think it was about
It's
6
in
months.
conflict.
They're going to have them about 6 months or something like that. 6 months. See, for about 50,000. They were talking about 50,000 people.
What does that mean? We'll send them back?
Oh yeah.
Well, you understand now that a lot of the refugees that are coming over are educated, and a lot of them that do come over also speak English,
Yeah.
or they learn English
Yeah.
real
Real
quick.
like yeah.
In fact, a guy that was out there he's had some training, and he spoke French, but anyway, he converted into English, and so he had to get the basic English, so he's picking his English up. But a lot of the people that you're looking at that coming over know English, and it's just like the Vietnamese when they came over, they had instead of writing in kanji, they were writing in an alphabet thanks to the French. So their conversion was relatively easy, and the Americans had been there long enough so that a lot of them had a pretty good understanding of
Right.
English. So
Right.
they weren't speaking, say, Finnish or something like that, and then have to start from scratch.
John, what about an update on what you think is going on in homelessness here within our swamp metropolitan area here? What do you think so far?
Well, it's really a mess, and supposedly the mayor's got a new plan, and I haven't seen the
I saw that.
details, but if you drive around and you see all the camps and all that, and then all of the vandalism that's going on, and you look at downtown Portland, it's like a giant ghost town, because they're talking a lot about getting people back to the offices downtown. And a friend of mine, his wife works for a law firm, and she's not too hot about going back downtown. And in fact, the people that work for the companies downtown that live in Washington, they don't want to come back down because they're working over there and not paying Oregon income tax. We're talking, depending on your income level,
Right.
of 9 or 9.9% increase in wages. That's a lot.
Right, that's a lot. That's quite a bit.
And they don't have to drive to and from,
That's right.
either by bus or by car.
That's
So
right. And
they're
maybe-
really ahead. so.
and then looking forward towards toll, right?
I could have talked forever. Toll is a 4-letter word. I hate it, And the deal is, I've talked to some people down the valley, and he says, "Oh, you poor people up there, they're going to toll." I says, "It's the nose of the camel. You want to kill it outright, because the deal is, it will spread.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the rest of the state down there, the way people travel around, they're looking as a source of income. And so you're looking at, say, in the Springfield, Eugene area, the Salem area, Roseburg, even Klamath Falls and Bend area, they will be able to get you, see, on the tolls. And now, and some people think it's okay, but it's not. I was, in my military service, had to go back to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, Maryland, and you either have a sticker, you turn it down, and they can track you where you've been, when you've been, and so on and so forth. Or, like a lot of people, they had a change machine like the bus drivers, and you'd have to slow down, and you'd throw it in there. And what they really like is to have you have that sticker, because the deal is, you come through the gate A and you end up at gate B, and if you're there too soon, they mail a speeding ticket to you in the mail.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
my God.
So this toll, I mean,
Oh, man.
if you make less than $100,000, it's going to affect you. If you make less than $50,000 a year, it is going to hurt you.
Wow.
Because they're talking about 40 cents to $1 or so. But San Francisco, going across that bridge, it's $7.25 each way. You're talking almost $15
Jesus Christ.
per day, and it's just too much of a temptation. Once they get it, we will be stuck, and it will spread like a cancer.
Oh my God. Gee. But what about lunch? I mean, person won't be able to go home for lunch. That's bad. Another 50.
There are going to be a lot of people brown bagging it.
That's what I'm saying.
And the deal is, people are going to restaurants now. All of a sudden, you're talking about, say, $10 a day. Well, they're going to be brown bagging it. Those restaurants downtown, they're going to die. And a lot of them have died already, because they're depending on the office workers for the breakfast and lunch crowd. And some of them actually had a fair dinner crowd, because some people would get off work at 5 o'clock.
Right, exactly.
They'd have a light dinner, then they'd go home after the rush.
Right.
And that all disappear.
Wow.
I was down at PGE, nobody's there.
Yeah.
They're all working from home.
Really?
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
Yeah. They have like a small cadre there, and some people like that, and some people want to get it back, so they figure, I'm really in charge because I get to look at you and you. But the deal is, you're thinking, hey, at home, especially if you're living in Washington, you're not paying 9 or 9.9%. So
the owners want to get people back in where they can control them.
Yeah.
And the young folks want to show their wares.
Yeah. And they've talked about before, and I told people, I says, if you're doing that, you want to be able to be at work, a couple times a month, or at least once a week, so the boss sees you, so you're more than just a number.
Exactly.
This is how, when they have contracts, they just cancel this and cancel that, because there's no attachment to somebody. So there's a value both ways for being together.
Makes sense.
But the thing is that some people are looking at the fact they don't have the travel time. They don't have those expenses. And the other thing is, people who had to drive to work, they could change their auto insurance from business and pleasure, which you drive to and from work and our school, to pleasure only, and your auto insurance could drop 10 to 30%. One of my wife's employees had Safeco. I happened to mention it to him. My wife said the next day he had a big smile. He dropped his insurance 20%.
Really? Wow.
And that,
wow, that's nice. That helps.
Oh yeah, you're talking a lot of money real quick.
That's big. That's big.
And you have to renew your insurance every 6 months.
That's right. Oh man, that's.
Yeah, I've got that coming up.
You got yours coming?
That's good to know.
Wow.
Yeah. So people that retire, you go on and pleasure only. Even if you're driving more miles, you're not driving at the peak hours. Of to and from rush hour.
All insurance carrying it that way, pleasure only type thing? Those two categories?
Yeah. As far as I know. But it's a big deal. So, and that's an incentive for them to take public transportation. But the deal is, in Oregon, there are no 24-hour cities. In fact, most states, there's no 24-hour cities. Now, you go to some of the eastern cities, you can catch your bus or a train at 3 or 4 in the morning just as easy as 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Right.
That is not the case here.
Right.
Not anywhere in this state.
Wow. Is that something you might look into?
It would be nice to start some of the transportation systems around the state. That
Well, you got the biggest metro right here, right here in the swamp,
yeah.
and they got transportation.
And the deal is, it's there are some bus lines that are pretty good, but not 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And if they could up the ridership, of course, it's a matter of safety is the thing, and then that means you're going to have to get the policemen, have to get more police, and have to get them on to the buses, because it makes a big difference when a policeman's there rather than sneaking around, actually standing in the way.
Right.
So,
Well, let's talk about another area. How about the whole issue of
Yeah.
the whole issue of law enforcement? You know, what I mean, when you think about for the governor's position, and here we are talking about here Portland, and Portland police tend to stand out just like a sore thumb. And at one point in time, the state was involved. I mean, the governor was involved. I mean, you know, other law enforcement agencies were involved with the deal. In fact, even at one point in time, I think the feds were involved at one point in time, and then they said no to them. They said no to them, and then all of a sudden, it looked like to me they said no to the state. So, you know, people talking about shortages and what happened to the highway patrol and all these other municipalities. Is this something that the governor might want to look at in terms of making sure that happens? Because you're the commanding officer of the whole deal anyway.
well, actually, the Oregon State Police is kind of one of the most abused police departments around, because they would kind of get built up and everything's good, then they'd whack them back, build them up and whack them back. But the trouble with Portland, and they had certain commissioners, was defund the police, and you get cut back so far. You know, the deal is, you know, we've been in the military. You know, if you got a squad, you know, a platoon of 40 guys, you can do a lot. But if there's only 15 of you, there's not much you can do.
Exactly.
So you need so many people there, and they've cut this and cut that, and you wonder what they're thinking. And I remember when I was going to the Oregon Military Academy, they had the American Legion convention here in town, and they had they called up the National Guard and the state police, and so they came into town, and and of course they had Vortex out there at MacGyver Park, and got to drive out there. I was my official duty, see. Anyway, so would actually have to say these places, if they can't or won't get the crime under control, the deal is that the state police and the National Guard would have to come in and step in and help them. And
they did that.
They did that for the American Legion Convention, and it was quite effective. In fact, they had a big gathering at Dunaway Park up there on Barber Boulevard, 4th Avenue, come together, and they had 15,000 people that stomped down the grass, and so they're just coming off the grass to head downtown, and I just happened to be driving back at that time with some high-ranking officers, and they had 20 deuce and a halves drive by with about 20 guys in each one, and they're hanging out, and you know, they're wearing their riot gear and they're waving their riot batons. Come on down.
Right.
There's only 150 out of 15,000 came down, and I was down there, and you know, even at 6'2½", I think they had the tallest state policeman from all over the state, because you know, I'm standing there looking at most of the guys. I'm looking at this straight on, not on their tie. I mean, these are some big guys.
Big guys. The downtown too.
Downtown, all the parking garages, they had them around there, and the National Guard was down there.
I participated in it, of all things. I was on the diocese holding the American flag. I was in the Marine Corps, see.
Yeah.
So because when I was there, I was assigned to hold the flag. That was interesting. The bikers were there. Remember the bikers were there,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. It was interesting, very interesting. But like you said, but I guess the point I'm making is that with all of the turmoil and situation we're having here, and we're constantly hearing the lacking of law enforcement aspect of it, I was thinking about what would be your position if in fact you saw this situation and a need. Would you be considering releasing?
Stepping in? Oh, yeah.
Stepping in?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Because as the governor, I'm the governor of all the citizens.
Right.
See? And so the deal is, it's in a lot of parts of Portland and a lot of different times in Portland, it's not safe to be out and
Right.
about.
Right.
That's right.
And they tell you, well, a pistol's only good for 50 feet or 50 yards, but those bullets fly a long way.
But they sure do.
I was assigned a Browning machine gun, 30 caliber. Most people look at 30-06 as good for about 200 yards. Well, no, this had a maximum effective range of 2,000 yards. That's 25 city blocks. That's from Burnside to Division.
Wow.
So it's a long ways.
Wow. Wow. So you'd feel comfortable doing that kind of a piece.
Well, it's a matter of
It
public.
makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense.
When you're in government service, number one is public safety. It doesn't make any difference whether you're a clerk somewhere doing some paper support or you're doing food service or anything. It's so that people whose actual job to do public safety can do public safety. It's it's like our army. It used to be the troops at night would be melting down the lead for the bullets and
Right.
mending their own clothes and all that. You got support people to do that. And this is the same when you have police officers and you have related services. They have support so they can do their job. And the thing is that police presence is a good thing because it's like in riot control. We've all had riot control.
Sure.
What happens a lot of times is people get in a mob and they become anonymous. They forget who they are. And then you have the provocateurs. A lot of times they get people revved up and they're facing the police or the National Guard and they get behind and lock their arms. So the common citizen that is carried away is up front, they can't back up. And so, somebody was squawking because they come down the riot squads and they're pounding their shields and making lots of noise. Well, it is to kind of wake them up. Yes, it's to scare them, but the deal is, if they realize, I need to mow my lawn, I need to wash my car, the wife needs shopping, whatever it is. So they go home, nobody gets hurt. The last thing when I was in the Guard and we were ready to get out there and do it, we really didn't want to hurt anybody. But if we had to, we would. And when I was an MP and using a nightstick and a riot baton, I'm pretty good, and I'm glad I never had to hurt anybody.
Yeah. Do you think that? What do you think? Why is it that? Why did not our present Guard get involved with Portland issues? Have you any background material?
Well, I don't know for sure, but if you look at who the mayor is and the county chairman and the governor, because they don't have the will, they don't want to do things. It's like the jail out there that they built. The county could have put a measure on the ballot to operate the thing, and it would have passed in a heartbeat. And the thing is, now you have a district attorney won't prosecute, and that's really too bad because it's. And one of the things they probably have to do with the prison system is go to a seniority force out, so that because a lot of times the judge says there's no room at the end. Well, for a prison to be a deterrent, it's not the severity of the punishment, it's the swiftness and sureness. And then the other part is the age. When those guys get out and they're 40, 45 years old, they figure if they go back, they won't be the tough guy.
Yeah, right.
And so it'd be the swiftness, and because building prisons, they are some of the most expensive systems to build and run. And so it just needs to have the fact that you have a place to put them, and somebody, when they wake them up. And the thing is that most people who get in trouble with the law, vast majority of them, once is enough, and so they should have a good expungement program, so that you get out and you haven't committed anything in 5 years. Maybe it goes away, so that they become upstanding citizens, and there's an incentive for them to go straight.
Right. That has been a kind of a major issue when you start thinking about our criminal justice system aspect of it. I mean, the whole idea was, if you did the crime, you did the time.
Yeah.
And then if you did the time, you were maybe a little bit more probation or something for a certain period of time. But the person was supposed to be whole by then, right?
Yeah. In fact, 100 years ago, once you got out, you did your time, you went back to a normal life. This wasn't a forever penalty.
Right.
And they changed it, and I remember they had some lady district attorney or something like that, and she was talking about the forever crimes. And you have these forever crimes now that are relatively minor in effect, but the thing is, your life is disrupted for a lifetime. And one of those disruptions is that no firearms. What's no firearms mean? These people are not eligible for military service.
Right.
That makes this nation weaker.
That's right.
And in fact, there was a case, actually when they went to get tough on crime, they went to mandatory arrest, so the policeman's in his mind, he's going to cuff somebody. Then he went to mandatory sentencing, and then they had a push to get women and college graduates, so they did away with the height requirement, so you ended up with a lot of short officers who have a short person's mentality. And then also they created more crimes, and they upgraded crimes. And in fact, in Central Oregon, there was a case of young couples, teenagers were playing with each other, and the girl's father didn't like it, so he pressed charges. It went to the grand jury. They said no bill, there was no crime, but the district attorney prosecuted anyway. The judge didn't catch it. The defense attorney didn't catch it, so they convicted this guy. And one of the members of the grand jury saw the announcement in the paper, and he called the defense attorney, and then the Attorney General, Hardy Myers, a Democrat, got in and says, well, we got to make more charges. And the more charges, were they interested in putting this young guy in jail? No, they are interested in making him a lifelong sex offender for the supervision fee. It's about the money. So we need to have some justice brought back to it, and the Judeo-Christian deal about forgiveness, because right now you stub your toe and it's permanent, perpetual punishment, and that's wrong.
So as I see it, the protesters said defund the police. So now there's less police, and if, as governor, that would make Portland weak.
Oh yes.
What would you have anything to say about that? I wonder, just to even a comment now.
Hopefully this election is going to show something, because we're going to get some different people in there that are going to say, we don't like what's going on, and you have to make some changes. And the thing is that as governor, the thing is that there'll be times that you just have to step in, because it's about public safety.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Look at the damage that's going on to property and to people, and like they steal these cars, and they're running around causing damage, and they're injuring people and killing people. It's some of these people have suddenly got a real hot car that's not theirs,
yeah,
and you know, they get in a wreck, and a lot of times they're in good shape and they run away unscathed, but yet somebody else, they're banged up or they're killed.
Okay. You know, I was thinking along that same line, and I was going to throw it on the table to you, see what you think about it. What if they were, guardsmen from all throughout the state, all over the place, right? And I'm just saying, you've got quite a number of guardsmen that are here in the metropolitan area, okay, serving. And what if they're very familiar with the area because they know the area, because they live here.
Yeah.
And so let's say if they dispatch just those guardsmen to deal with that issue of helping out with police, you see? Because one, they're familiar, and they could tell whether or not the people who are involved in things, they would recognize them in many ways. Because that's one of the problems we're having here now. We don't know who's on the street.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks from out of town. We know that, but my point is, but they don't point that out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm just thinking, but if the guardsmen were here when the policemen needed help, you get me? They'd have enough force, and they could basically cordon off certain areas and this, that, and the other, and maybe and also be utilized as like remember the old deal we had, the street watch, community and neighborhood watch type thing.
Yeah.
And then people would be assigned.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember that? And then they would assign a block area. Let's say just one block each and whatever. And imagine putting a guardsman, 2 guardsmen or something, with them. You got me? Just to patrol that area. What do you think about something like that?
Well, it has some merit, and one of the
Okay.
things that you really need to get the word out to these people, you know, getting away with some things is a lot harder than it used to be because there is cameras everywhere.
Yeah, right.
And another thing that's changed in Army training is that more and more people go into the Army and get experience with pistols. Because
Yeah.
it used to be, you know, in the Army and the Marine Corps, there was only a certain number of people got pistol training. Now it's more and more people with pistols. So if they help the police, instead of getting in and out of the police car with a rifle,
Right.
they can
Right.
be with a handgun and a club, see, so
Right, right.
and mace and a few
Right,
other things,
right.
and get them into the deal of talking with people and say, you know, you
Right.
got something more important to do
Right,
than
right.
fight with your neighbor.
Right. Yeah, in fact, on that same point is my understanding. Now, you did have a background, right? MP, so to speak.
I was an MP for a while.
You were
yeah.
an MP for a while, so you had and you're right, the club and whatever, and the 45, right?
Right.
You weren't carrying a rifle. You know, I'm very familiar with what you had. You know what I'm saying? And the cuffs,
Yeah.
and that's how you operated, right?
Right. And the thing is that when I like at Yakima Firing Center, some of the guys, they like to hide behind the bushes to catch somebody. I like to be out there where they see me and they'd all drive right. You know, it's like on Yakima Firing Center, and
I know about that.
you go out there, and the fact is that especially at night, and the guys are wearing the uniforms, you know, it's too easy at high speed to end up running over them. So
Right.
the deal is, hey, keep your speed down and your bright lights on,
Yeah, right,
so
right.
you don't hurt anybody.
Right. Do guardsmen do they actually have live rounds as far as National Guardsmen when they for instance, if there was an earthquake or whatever, something like that, or something lesser than that?
If say there was a problem with looting, then you'd have to have armed people out
Okay.
there.
So it wouldn't be let's say if they activated the guard for the whole state, but if certain areas didn't have looting aspect of it, would they basically be different than as far as carrying?
Well, if you had an earthquake or a storm, a lot of times you activate them and they come out, and what they're doing is they're
Picking
coming with
folks
their
up.
equipment,
Right.
and so they're bringing relief, and they're doing damage
Right.
control and things
Right.
like that. It's when they actually go for the weapons, it's when there's a problem with undesirables, or
Right,
in
right.
some cases, say wild animals could be a problem. see.
Right. Well, like Portland, for instance, some of the things that we've been having in the Portland, they would actually activate them that way then, so to speak.
They could come in and they could do damage control and relief, and if they had to say some crime control, then the weapons would come out, but not necessarily
Yeah, right,
off
right.
the bat.
Right. Well, I'm thinking again, trying to address some of the issues here locally, you know, in terms of what happened. And I'm just saying, if because
Well,
police are
you know,
saying we won't be able to recruit folks.
You know, there's a lot of things the police do not want to do now because there just aren't enough of them and support for them. They even, I don't know, I don't know if it's speeding or parking or whatever it is, they just don't have time for that now.
Well, also the thing is, they had a lot of restrictions on what they could stop them for, and of course, there were some cops who were stopping people for the most minor things,
The
and then it
taillight
would turn
syndrome.
into a fishing expedition, and they were picking their victims, you know, because it could be somebody that's young or somebody of color.
Right.
They just some people they get power and they can't control it.
Yeah.
And the deal is that when I was in Camp Roberts a couple of times, I was on guard duty guarding prisoners with a M3 submachine gun. I really didn't want to. I didn't want to shoot anybody, but I could have if things got in the way. And there was one problem child there, and he was looking at my grease gun, and I opened it up, and you could see that the bolt was back, and it was a loaded magazine, and he behaved. You know.
Well, you know, we probably now there are more weapons out on the street today.
Oh,
illegal.
absolutely.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
People they're not licensed to carry them. A lot of them are stolen weapons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But why is it that they haven't implemented something that says, well, wait a minute, I realize you got to stop the car, that kind of stuff, and maybe metal detectors. You know, you don't have but 4 streets going in and out downtown anyway. You know what I mean? And if there's any kind of marching or anything of that nature, you know what I mean, protesting or whatever, they would basically do something. What do you think about that?
Well, when they have these, most times when they have these demonstrations and parades, they're supposed to have, excuse me, a permit,
Right,
see,
exactly.
which also means insurance.
Exactly.
And usually the police knows when it is, so they would put in an appearance, see, and so they're there to observe, and somebody gets out of line.
Right.
Now, the gun control people, and they want to have these restrictions, but they only affect law-abiding citizens. In fact, you hear every so often they want to have you can only buy 1 gun a month or 1 gun a year, and that voids the one gun control law that really works, and that's the multiple purchase law and multiple purchase form. If you buy 2 or more handguns, you fill out this form, and when law enforcement finds a handgun at a crime scene, the first thing they check is the multiple purchase forms, and they start coming back and finding these people. So that works. And in fact, just recently there was a guy who was buying and selling firearms, and he was illegal, but he had bought a few on multiple purchase forms, and when all of a sudden he's buying a few here and a few there, all of a sudden he got on their radar, and they checked him, and they estimated that he had bought and sold over 40 firearms, handguns.
Yeah, right.
See, but the thing is, when they catch a real criminal and they go through the plea bargaining process, the gun charges go off the table.
Really?
Oh yeah. So the deal is, you and I happen to bruise the law, so to speak. They throw the books at us because it's the only thing they got. But the thing is that they're so they're not prosecuting real people on it. And the thing is that they're not getting much time, especially with this particular district attorney that they have in Multnomah County now.
Well, what is the problem with him? Have you looked into that from the standpoint of are there major restrictions in terms of he can't do his hands are tied?
No. That's
what's the
part
deal?
of the George Soros brand of district attorneys nationwide, is just to be soft on crime, which actually makes life more uncomfortable and more dangerous for you and I as citizens.
Oh, yes.
So now, is it, now the fact the Soros piece, I mean, everybody knows about, and you want to define Soros for the public?
George Soros was a collaborator with the Nazis during the Second World War, and then he became a money changer, swapping money back and forth as the values of the monies go back and forth.
He's got to be older.
He's a pretty old guy.
Yeah.
But he's got kids, and he's got the open society thing, which is, no borders, and you can have people coming and going what they want. So you have people coming in. You have a lot of people show up, and they don't have any jobs.
Right.
What they got to do,
they borrow some money.
yeah. So they turn to crime, and then the thing
Right.
is that they run down the wages and stuff like that. They're trying to get a $15 an hour minimum wage, and $15 minimum wage is substantial. And for those of you who have a job that pays dollars and cents per hour, you just multiply that by 2,080, and it'll tell you what your annual salary is. So, or you just ballpark it at 2,000 hours, and $15 an hour is over $30,000. And this is the other thing about emphasizing finishing high school, that on average, somebody that finishes high school, when they're 30, 12 years later, they're making double the prevailing minimum wage.
Yeah.
So that's, $30 an hour is over $60,000.
Right.
I mean, you could be a TriMet bus driver, and in 3 years you're making 62 grand a year, not counting overtime.
Yeah. Well, look, we're at that point now. We got about 2 minutes left on the
Right.
deal, and maybe you can just give us a close for about.
Careful, I'll read
about
a
a
poem.
minute. Can you give us a kind of a close on your end?
Okay, yeah.
Well, I'm running for governor, and
There we go.
and I'm a Democrat, and I want to have a better Oregon for Oregonians, and I'll be working for you because you're paying me.
I want to see you there in the governor's chair.
You got to vote there, buddy. You got to vote there.
Absolutely.
I need another 3 million. See?
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that. Well, John, this has been very informative. I really appreciate that. That's one of the reasons why we have you on, and I have you on because I know you have the background. You got me big time.
What's your website, John Sweeney for governor, or is it more complicated than that?
Now let me see what it says there. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Real quick, right?
Okay. It's jsweeney88@gmail.com. So if you have any
Read
questions,
it out again, real quick. Go on.
Okay. JSWEENEY88@gmail.com. You email me, I'll answer that question.
That sounds great. Again, that's John Sweeney. Okay, good. Sounds good. You want to say a couple of things, buddy?
The only thing we're going to say is we appreciate the crew and all the work they've been doing today for put these shows on, make us livable.
Okay.
Whatever.
I guess I would just, the only point I would be making is thank you, Richard, for allowing the Oregon Voters Digest to be a part of your show today.
We might say this was a hybrid.
It was a hybrid today? Sounds good. So we'll also run this on the Oregon Voters Digest because we had some good information here. We want to make sure we get it out to the voters. Okay? And thank you for being with us. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time around.
That's right.
That sounds
right.
good.
And we're just about there.
Okay. Have a good one, folks. Looks like we're right there now. There we go. How about that?
Now I'll have to.